Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we've got a pretty important card. We've got the debut of Enamorus. Yeah, that's right. Now, this is a Pokemon, and I think a bunch of people have actually missed this Pokemon, as it turns out. This was the new legendary Pokemon that was revealed, or, I suppose not revealed is the wrong word, made its debut back in Legends Arceus, and there was a whole task where you had to go and catch the forces of Nature Trio, and then after that you could go and get Enamorus, and it was kind of a whole thing. One of the more interesting, more difficult tasks during the game. Well, turns out Enamorus is making its debut in the Pokemon TCG, and has been revealed in the Chinese language first. Remember, in Hong Kong and Taiwan, they have Chinese language cards, and they seem to be getting bigger and bigger reveals as it happens, which never used to be the case. But I don't know. It does mean we need to give a shout out to Airglow TCG, who I did go and interrupt this morning to ask for translations, and because they're awesome, they were there and they gave us the translations, and all is good. And it's a bit weird. I was kind of expecting Enamorus would make its debut, as its own set. I told you just yesterday that Incandescent Arcana could end up being the debut of this Pokemon. Well, it's making its debut in Dark Phantasma, and this is a little bit weird to me. I would not have expected this. Now, there is a very important question we need to ask before we look at what the card does. Will we be getting a V-Star? Because remember, there are 3 V-Stars in the set, and we've only seen 2 of them. Could this be number 3? Well, I can't tell you for absolute certain, but almost certainly not. And the reason is really simple. One of the Chinese language reveals we had for the previous set was Heatran V Max and Heatran V. I.e., when they did these reveals previously with Heatran, they showed us the V and the V Max at the same time, which suggests that if they were showing off a V-Star, they would show the V and the V-Star at the same time. They wouldn't show us the V and then show us the V-Star later. Plus, this is one of those that is actually pretty gosh darn good, which again suggests that it's potentially a little bit too good to have a V-Star that evolves from it. So I can't tell you absolutely certain one way or the other, but do not expect this to have a V-Star and consider it to be a surprise if it does. So what have we got? Well, we got 210 HP, which is lower than the 220 a lot of them have, and a weakness to metal, which basically nobody's hitting at the moment. It does mean it shares a weakness with Whimsicott, which has suddenly become good and made me look bad, but as it stands at the moment, metal is really not an issue in terms of Pokemon hitting for weakness. We'll see what happens as we go forward. But what we've got here is a really rather interesting ability indeed. As long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, prevent all effects of your opponent's Pokemon's abilities done to your Pokemon with any psychic energy attached. Except any Enamorus V. Enamorus V is unfortunately, it's excluded, which is a little bit sad, but what can you do? And this is nice, honestly. This is really, really nice. Because abilities right now are kind of a thing. Although I do need to do a sidebar for just a moment and remind you about Espeon V Max that prevents all effects of attacks other than damage done to any of your Pokemon that have any energy attached. So there is a nice little combo here where abilities don't hurt you and only damage goes through from attacks, no other effects, and you've got a nice lot of protection here. And the obvious answer right off the bat here, Inteleon. And I'm not saying this is just for Inteleon, not for a second, but I absolutely am telling you that one of the main abilities we've got at the moment, which will be affecting you, is going to be Inteleon dropping those extra damage counters, so certainly this is, honestly, kind of a big deal. But any abilities that would seek to remove energy from your bench Pokemon, gusting abilities, things like Umbreon V Max, trying to drag you from the bench to the active, that would absolutely be turned off here, and this is just really useful. Perfect? No. Absolutely not. No one's arguing that it is. It's not a reason to play the card most of the time, because it's got to be active. If this worked on the bench, and this was just a basic Pokemon that gave instant protection to any of your Pokemon with Psychic Energy attached from stuff like Inteleon, yes! But because it's got to be active and it only protects your bench, well, protect your bench because this has to be active. It's fine, and it's useful, but it's a bonus more than a reason to play it. But then we've got the attack Blooming Tail. What we've got here, for free energy, a Psychic Double Colorless is 100 damage, and you attach up to 2 basic energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way that you like. And this is kind of interesting, because this really basically turns Enamorus into a support Pokemon. This is not a Pokemon around which you're going to build a deck, because, to put it bluntly, 100 damage isn't enough. Even if you're hitting for weakness, you're not even getting a KO on something like an Urshifu V, not unless you start playing around with stuff like Choice Belt, and if you put free energy on a Pokemon and you're hitting for weakness and you need a tool to get a KO on Pokemon V, something's gone wrong, ladies and gentlemen. What this is I'm going to do a little bit of setup damage, and I'm going to accelerate a bunch of energy, and then we'll go from there. And while I'm doing that setup damage, you can't be gusting with stuff like Umbreon, you can't be dropping damage counters with stuff like Inteleon, you've got that protection. And the one that springs to mind for me straight off the bat is that Mewtwo V-Star that we saw from the Pokemon Go set the other day. Because firstly, that lets you discard free psychic energy from any of your Pokemon, dealing 90 damage for each one discarded. So a couple of turns with Enamorus here is going to set that one up beautifully. But also you've then got Star Raid, which does 120 to each of your opponent's Pokemon V. Well, if you've hit them for 100 with Enamorus, the vast majority of Pokemon V have 220 or less. So you can actually kind of hit with Enamorus, accelerate energy, and then Star Raid will potentially go and get a couple of KOs on Pokemon V. This will also, incidentally, 100 damage, get a lot of those weaker single prize support Pokemon, which can also be a pretty big deal. And that is essentially where we are with Enamorus here. It's got to support. But then you've got to get the energy on it in the early game. So something like Cresselia would work here. That's the one, if you go second on turn 1, you get to search your deck for free psychic energy and attach them. That would absolutely work. Or stuff like Shadow Rider Calyrex. Although Shadow Rider Calyrex, it's an evolved Pokemon, it's a free prize, or it starts getting a little bit awkward. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the one I'd want to go for, although it does remain an option. And then, of course, if you're playing a Mewtwo deck, you're going to have stuff like that Galarian Articuno, that when you bench, you attach 2 extra Psychic from your hand to it. So you can always then be starting to play around with stuff like Energy Switch. Just move that energy over a little bit cheekily. But I'll be honest with you, I don't like the free energy. It seems expensive. Because again, what I really want, where I'm going with Enamorus is, get it in the active early, get that protection from abilities, start softening up some Pokemon, or I suppose, taking some cheeky KOs while accelerating energy, and then coming in and sweeping with something bigger like Mewtwo. That's where I see this going. But now you're telling me I've got to get free energy on Enamorus here before I can even really get rolling, and that just does become a little bit awkward. I'm giving it between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. I don't think it's a bad card, but I think it's a buy turns with the ability and then potentially accelerate energy, but you've got to get the energy onto Enamorus to begin with, and that can be a bit awkward. So I like it, but I am just a little bit worried. Now, there was one other card that was revealed alongside this, and it is Arcphone, and I don't know, we might as well while we're here. And what we've got here is an item card. Look at the top card of your deck, then return it to the top of your deck. You may choose one of your face-down prize cards and switch it with the top card of your deck. Now, one thing which is extremely important to note right out the gate here, it specifically says, and Agglo TCG has been great with these translations, it specifically says face-down prize card. So if you've got any kind of card which will turn your prize cards face up and think, ha ha ha, now I can use this to make sure I get this. No, you can't. You can't use this to try and cheat the one you want. As soon as they go face up, it doesn't work anymore. And you can't do it. And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. Is this any better than something like Peonia? Honestly, no. Peonia lets you choose 3 random prize cards, put them into your hand, and then put a card from your hand as a face-down prize card. The thing about Peonia is you get to look at half your prizes, and we saw it at the EUIC last weekend. Sometimes that works beautifully, sometimes it doesn't, but at least you've got a decent shout. Here, you're looking at one random prize, and it's an item card, so it's hard to search. Unlike something like, supporter cards are actually quite easy to find nowadays. You can Luminium for Peonia. If you've got a really important thing prize, that will absolutely work. So you add in the fact that it's harder to find because it's an item, and it only actually lets you look at one card, and it's at random. It all starts becoming a little bit awkward. I like it, and I think it can be useful, but I also think we've got to be a little bit realistic here. I don't think this is going to end up being particularly good. What I will say is, it's kind of pseudo-item draw. You basically get to swap the top card of your deck with one of your prize cards. So you do essentially get to play this, and then pick up one of your prize cards if you want to, and then it gets switched with the top card of your deck. And you all know what the prize is, that does give you information. So, as kind of pseudo-item-based draw in a speed deck, I actually do like this quite a lot. As a, hey, it's in my prizes, let's go get it, nah, I think it's too awkward. But as pseudo-item-based draw, I've seen a lot worse, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen a lot worse. And okay, fine, I'll mention them here, because if I don't, a bunch of you are going to mention it in the comment section, and I suppose rightly so. A Dream Ball and Treasure Energy. Those are cards that came out a little while ago. They were in Evolving Skies. Dream Ball only works if you take it as a face-down prize card, search the deck for any Pokemon and put it onto your bench. And then Treasure Energy only works if you took it as a face-down prize card, and then you can attach it to one of your Pokemon. Both phenomenal cards, both potentially great with Arc Foam, because essentially what you do is you look at the top card of your deck, and then if it is Dream Ball or Treasure Energy, you choose to swap it one of your prize cards, but you know which prize card you just swapped it with, and then you can guarantee that it's actually going to fire. It sounds amazing in theory, but the thing to remember is, in order for this to work, you've basically got to have Arc Phone, play Arc Phone, hope that one of those cards happens to be exactly the top card of your deck, and then wait till you draw it. If it works, it's going to be amazing, but I'm not really buying it as a consistent option. Let's go ahead and give it between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. Also worth bearing in mind, this will last in the TCG 1 year longer than Peonia will, because Peonia has a regulation mark of E, and this has a regulation mark of F. So I do think that is actually kind of potentially relevant. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, couple of new cards. Enamorus clearly the big story here, but Arc Phone one to look out for a little bit as well. And now it's over to you guys. Tell me which of these cards you're excited about. Tell me if Enamorus is making the debut you're expecting, or whether you think it might be just a little bit underpowered. Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing is always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.